The artist's brain is an independent variable. When brought into the everyday world, their senses find meaning in even the most mundane observations. The reaction must only be told by the artists themselves. I'm Loverboy, and this is an experiment. Today's guests are the definition of meant to be. Twin brothers that make up what will become one of the most impressive duos in film, finding themselves recognition at festivals including Toronto International Film Festival, Hamptons Film Festival, Cannes, and many more. Not only are they currently working on their first feature film, but with one as an editor for Outpost Media and the other as a creative director at Tiny Hero Films, these brothers are nowhere near finished. String cheese and processed foods are the way to their hearts. Please welcome today's guests, Adam and Daniel Cooper. Welcome, guys. It's great to have you.
Thank you for letting us into your experiment.
Thank you. It's an honor to be part of this experiment.
I already said that.
Well, I'm saying it again.
Fine.
You guys are both from Michigan. One of you went to New York from there. The other one went to Chicago, and now you guys find yourself back together in L.A. Who went to New York and who went to Chicago?
I went to New York. This is Daniel.
And I am Adam, and I went to Chicago.
And what did you guys go there for?
Well, we went for school. So I went to NYU for film school.
And I went to Columbia College, Chicago, and we both had if I could expand on this, we both have at both of our colleges, we had a 6-week-long winter break. So every single year in the fall, we would write a short film. We would come home and shoot it, have a production back in Michigan. And in the spring, we would edit that film. And by the summer, we'd do a festival run. And we did that every year for 4 years. That was sort of our real film training rather than the actual classes themselves. I think it was really doing that every year that was our education in film.
Well, it was both. You know, you have the theory, but you also learn a lot in film school, and then you put it into practice.
How did you guys find yourselves getting recognition in some of these huge film festivals? As I said earlier, you had recognition at Cannes, you had it at the Hamptons Festival, at the Toronto International Film Festival. I mean, those are literally some of the biggest in the world. And you guys were in high school and college.
Yeah, you just submit them and you hope they like it and you get lucky, or it makes the cut. I mean, most of you get rejected from a lot of them.
Yeah, so, you're not including the list of rejections,
which is always longer, probably for anyone who's doing anything creative. Yeah, here's my point. You said that a lot of times you only see the success and you don't see the failures, and my thing is that I think that most of people, the career of a creative person is mostly failure or working towards something. It's like an iceberg. You only see the things that they're successful at, but beneath that success is years and hours of, working a million hours and hard work and getting rejected and failing. And, even like the top, most famous filmmakers in the world, if you scan their IMDb, you might only recognize like 2 out of like 100 films they've made, because they had to put in all those hours and do all those other projects that maybe not a lot of people saw or that failed in order to get those, 2 or 3 that everybody knows and remembers.
Absolutely.
And failures and more so limitations can be things that inspire creativity more than anything else.
Used as fuel.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we're kids in college making movies, our biggest we wanted to make sci-fi films with high production value, and our biggest limitation was always money. So, and that was a limitation, but that something like that causes, especially a short film director, to be extra creative. And we had to think more about, okay, we're not doing a big budget sci-fi film, so we're going to do a high concept sci-fi. We're going to put the value in the movie in the script and in the concept, and shock the audience, surprise the audience with a twist in the story rather than
in the writing, because writing is free. I mean, it's not free, but writing, there's no budget to a script.
Absolutely.
You can have huge, philosophical ideas in a script, and there's no price for that. It's not like you have a scene in space with a bunch of, aliens and lasers and stuff.
And I think that might be why some of our films cut through the clutter a bit in these festivals. is because we put in a lot of work into the high concept writing, taking inspiration from our favorite filmmakers like Chris Nolan and his higher concept films and the Twilight Zone, and that's kind of our style, is we try and do we're like the modern day Twilight Zone.
Absolutely. And you guys write together?
Yeah.
How did that start? You're twins, but how did you guys realize that writing together was so much more powerful than maybe writing on your own?
Because we really started writing together. We never really wrote alone. We've been doing this since we were kids with a little, digital blue video camera in, whatever it was, second grade.
When our friends hung out with us, we weren't the friends who you do cool things with. We were the friends who you go to the Cooper's house and they'll make you be in one of their movies. You end up with a stupid fun movie. So we have a ton of just little films from our childhood with our friends, bullshitting around. And we never had a real script for that when we were messing around as kids, but we would write. We would write on the spot, and we would do that together. And that sort of collaboration has sort of made its way into, a more structured
more
system
the official way of, there's, writing is kind of a loose definition. A lot of times it's not necessarily just sitting down at a computer and writing a screenplay,
Where do you guys get your creativity?
Anything that inspires us, other movies, things we read in articles. Our latest script, which is about memory transplants, all came from an article that we read about. You want to say?
Yeah, it's about memory transplants. I read this article in college years ago about these neuroscientists at MIT who had successfully transplanted a memory into a mouse. And I was like, what? That's crazy. What? And then, of course, what if you can do that with humans, and what are the philosophies and ethics and dangers of that? Mm-hmm. And so that's, in that instance, that's what inspired this feature film that we wrote called The Memory Bank.
That's incredible. And where are you guys at with that? How is that going? This is your first feature film.
Yeah. So right now we've been doing some rewrites on that. Right now it's set up at a studio, which I'm not sure if we're allowed to name it right now. We won't name it, but it's one of the studios, and we're developing it with them right now, and hopefully we can shoot that sometime in the next year or so.
Clearly, starting in college, even earlier, but starting to really go seriously in college and hear a bunch of no's, it conditioned you for maybe the world that you're in now, where it's a ruthless business. And sometimes you have to be able to know that it won't work the first time. It might not work the second time. It might not work the third time, but you're going to get there if you keep going. And this is a real life version of that. You guys said you heard more no's than you heard yeses. And now you're at the point where you're writing and getting to produce your own real feature film. What has the experience been like in growing from hearing those no's till now? What does it feel like?
I think, if you are really in love with the art, the craft that you're working on, the no's or any sort of negativity or anything is really just background noise in the stretch of things.
There's also, I think, something to be said for the virtue of persistence, which some people can tolerate, getting working for years and years at something and not, getting a lot of rejection. And other people who are probably, more sane than us say, this is, I'm going to do something else that's more worth my time.
Absolutely.
But like Jordan Peele, who's a, very successful director of Get Out. And I think I read, he said once, he went to film school and someone asked him, how did you know when you were in film school that you were going to be in your class? Did you know that you were going to be the most successful kid in your class? And he was like, no, I looked around and I really, all it was I was the only one who kept doing it. Everyone else after, 10, 15 years just stopped trying. And I was the only one who was insane enough to just keep doing it. I never really thought I was the most talented or anything. And there he is.
I feel like sometimes that comes with being just as much of a student as you are, the artist. You guys have been not only in love with creating movies and creating film for your whole lives, but you've been incredibly fascinated with the people who create it, with the actors, with why things are done. I mean, you guys are true students of film. How did that start?
It's just part of the love of it. It's just, if you love something, you naturally want to know everything you can about it. I mean, in order to be a good filmmaker, first you have to be a fan of movies. You have to love, or whatever you're doing. If you're a musician, you have to love music. You have to know all the great musicians, and it's not something that really is hard for you or that you have to think about. It's just something you naturally want to do because you love it so much. You know what I mean?
When we're watching our favorite films, we're studying them and rewatching them over and over again. And we were doing this as like kids. And we didn't know we were studying these films for any educational value. We just were like, oh, did you see how cool you did that shot? What's that shot called? And we're like 8 years old doing this. And then
because you've seen so many movies, and in our case, because we've seen so many of the same movies and the same shows, it becomes part of the language of the collaboration. Let's do this scene like the scene in Goodfellas where they do this. And we know exactly what we're. It's like this shorthand.
Well, and I've seen TV shows and movies with you guys, and there's nobody who knows the words more accurately and who understands the scenes more accurately. And when I watch a movie, I see a story. When you guys watch a movie, you see lighting, you see acting. You see a plot line. It's such a different thing. It's such a different thing to dissect. And I guess every creative has that in their own field, but you guys take it to a different level.
And the most
probably, like when you listen to music, you probably listen to it in a much different way than the average music listener. You're breaking down the instrumentation and the mix and how the drums are working.
But still, the first time you hear that song, you're just listening to the song. Is it a good song? Just like the first time we watch a movie, it's the story. That's still the most important thing always.
Mm-hmm. How would you guys say the changing and the differing people in your lives have affected the way you guys individually work on your art? Because though you've had most of your lives together and a lot of the same influences, there were 4 years for each of you where there's different inductors, there was different people that came into your life that would change each of your stories individually.
Yeah, all of Daniel's characters have New York accents, and all of mine have Chicago accents.
That's the secret. All of my characters like thin crust pizza, and all of his like deep dish.
See, that's such a
we're kidding.
I mean, I'm sure there are parts of the people you invent individually that do have bits and pieces of characters you've met in your real lives.
Oh yeah,
that's definitely true.
I mean, every character, we find this a lot with side characters where like it'll be like, oh, I heard this conversation on the street the other day. These two people, we should put that in the movie because that's perfect for this one part. Like just listening to people and their side conversations on the street is great material for a script, no matter what genre.
Or things that have happened to you.
So it sounds like people watching is a big creative reach for you guys.
Yeah, I think writers have to be observant, of
they have
the
to
world.
Observe themselves most of all, put their own insecurities on the page,
Yeah.
And that's where that,
One of the biggest ways that the people you spend time with influence your creativity is that more than anything, I think a lot of times they influence your taste, which is a big part of your creativity because, everybody has their own taste and everybody's has seen a different, amount of shows or movies. Everybody has a different favorite movie or TV show that they show you or you watch together, and they notice different things about it than you would have appreciated. And I think that's a big part of how your taste develops and evolves. And when you're working in that field, your taste is directly related to what comes out of you and your mind when you're creating your own version of these things you've seen.
Yeah.
And also we're surrounded by artists. All of our friends are artists. Like that's a great
You influence us.
I mean, it's good because we have a great friend, not to get like specific about our friend group, but we have, it's not just filming. We're surrounded by musicians, obviously, animators, other types of writers like journalists, like all these different perspectives. And I feel like we kind of benefit the most of all of that because the writers have to absorb all different experiences. So we take advantage of that.
Guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm excited to see all the incredible things you guys do in the crazy places you guys go. And for everybody listening,
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Adam.
And this is an experiment.
The experience is the experiment.